Changeling of the Guard, written by vdrake77, narrated by Equinox3141. Chapter 18. Falling into Step. O mighty Queen, blessed light of the sun that shines upon us all, to behold your countenance is more than this throne deserves. Let me grovel before you and kiss the sacred ground that you deign to touch with your glorious hooves. We worms who burrow in the dirt are as mere dust mites in your untrammeled presence. For what seemed 100th time since I had begun, I felt a sharp jab in my side, and finally could take no more, giving Topaz an exasperated glance, halting only at her frozen smile. Idle Hooves, when you're done catching your breath down there, please, get up, you are embarrassing me in front of the princess. I had not even realized ponies could speak while their teeth were clenched so hard. How intriguing. I'd have to experiment with that. I looked up and found the princess eyeing me with surprising concern, and I could feel that the love had been flowing to all of her subjects. While not gone, it was taking a secondary role for the concern towards one. And embarrassment? Oh, Order, I was no poet. What had I been thinking? How dare I wax on so poorly before her regal ears? Pardon us, Princess, he's a little overcome. I think he might have had a bit of pneumonia. That wheeze definitely sounded bad. He's not really from here, so he's got some weird ideas on how to... Topaz babbled, and I nearly scowled at her implication that I was sickly. Then I realized I had not spoken a single word in Equish. I had prostrated myself before the Princess Celestia and bussed the heavens about her glory. Shamefaced at my rushed failing, I began anew, this time ensuring my word would be understood, and was abruptly cut off by Topaz giving my tail a firm yank. A small smile graced those alabaster features, and I felt truly blessed to be the recipient of such grandeur. Please get up. I have never stood well with the idea that any pony should show obeisance by pressing their face into the dirt. I tried to react as a good drone should. She did not want me touching the soil she walked on. That was good. That was fine. I should just lift myself off of it. But this damnable form has no wings. I could adjust it, but not immediately. The effort would take a minute or two to adjust, but by then she would have moved on, and I felt ashamed that I had not been properly prepared. I had been unable to comply with any command or whim she had of me. I had failed. Come on, sir. Buck up. It's all right. A hoof clad in shining metal lifted me to my hooves with practiced ease, and my limbs seemed to regain some strength. Happens all the time. Some pony gets a little weak-kneed when the princess is about. There's a good lad. The figure before me was draped in armor, matching the princess's own royal wear, though far greater in quantity. Unlike many of the ponies around me, he stood straight and surely, with none of the jubilancy of the other ponies marring his features. The metal was polished to a shine that I could almost see myself in, and I found myself fascinated with the ensemble. Thank you. I managed, trying to regain my mental footing as easily as I'd taken to my hooves, and the struggle was immense. I needed to find Princess Celestia. I needed to repeat my praise so all here would understand. Lieutenant Shielded! Pleasure to see you again! Topaz interrupted too loudly, cutting off my line of thought as I stared at her. The officer stared a moment as well before recognition set in. Oh, hey, you're the, Topaz Showers, right? Her blink was not quite a wince, but it came close. Yeah, that's me. Just Topaz, please. How'd that powder work out? Fascinatingly. In fact, nearly wiped out the whole infestation in the barracks in under a week. He gave a weak chuckle, but it seemed forced. Bedbugs are bad enough, but honestly, I swear the lice on the Griffish borders are 10 times as aggressive as the Equish ones. About 3 times, in fact, and more resistant to soap. Well, glad to see your friend is up and about again. You all right, mister? Idle Hooves, I am fine. He seemed slightly taken aback by that, though I could not tell why. Well, you get that wheeze looked at. Honestly, it sounded like you had bumblebees in your lungs. Can't be healthy. And on that, I should take my leave and get back to the others. Mr. Hooves? Miss Showers? Good day. Topaz watched him go, looking a little annoyed. Yeah, no second date there either. And I had clearly missed something. Beg your pardon? Oh, nothing. And you, she hissed at the last, were buzzing at Princess Celestia. What were you thinking? I sighed, then quietly translated my buzzing, which had in truth been more desperate praise to a goddess than poetry, and my mood began to rise as Topaz's eyes widened with my explanation. When she started giggling hysterically, I knew another moment of panic. What? Oh my glorious hooves! I never thought you for a hoof stallion. She took a deep breath, calming herself, and then pitching her voice so the others in the throng would not hear. And you called her a queen? Not princess? And even referred to yourself as a drone? I thought you wanted to keep a low profile, not reveal yourself in Canterlot's main square. She very clearly already knows, I protested, hurt by Topaz's inability to see. She is not omniscient. Don't make that mistake, Idol. I gave her a slight frown, displeased at her irreverence. She actually gave me a faint smile, meant to be reassuring, I believe, and I let the matter drop for now. What is the purpose of Lieutenant Shielded? There are enemies in Canterlot that would harm it? What? No, of course not. The duty of the Canterlot Guard is to protect the citizens, keep the peace, and protect the princess. It's sort of, a public service. I mean, you said about there being warrior drones. They have to do patrolling from time to time. No, they generally sleep unless a threat is detected. They do not perform the duties of regular drones. My interest was piqued, however, and I looked at the guards' ponies, armors glinting in the light of the sun I had watched the princess herself raise. Protect the princess? Public service? I found myself quite liking the effect, and I realized that I was having difficulties distinguishing one guard from another. So caught up was I that I realized with a start that I had been ignoring Topaz's response to my musings. And sometimes things do happen in Canterlot that require them to put their lives on the line for the sake of the citizens, so yeah, it's highly respected, but not everyone is eligible, and a lot of ponies aren't willing to give up so much freedom. Fascinating, I mumbled, looking around. Why, they had been stationed all over the square in patches, and I was only noticing them now that I truly looked. The armor provided a false mane and covered a large portion of the body. This made sense, I realized, given that ponies would be incapable of growing the thicker shells of warrior drones. It was very pleasing to me, I found. I am going to have a look around. There is much emotion in the air, I admitted, carefully siphoning it off. I wondered briefly if I would be capable of drunkening myself in that river of emotion, or would I be swept away by it? I decided not to find out. Go for it. I'm going to go grab some caramel apples. Want one? A what apple? Oh, you're going to love this. Don't be afraid to spend a few bits and have some fun. She smirked, trotting off. I took that as my cue to wander about. I found myself circling a group of guards. It was quite interesting watching them interact with the population. Many held stolidly neutral expressions, but several held smiles and chatted amiably with the community. But for the most part, the community paid them little mind. It was as if they were part of the scenery, a living extension of Canterlot itself. I wondered how this subset of pony formed. Were they, like my kind, raised as foals for the task? I could not tell, and I decided I would ask Topaz later. Tearing my attention from them was difficult, but manageable. There were still other things to witness, and ponies involved in some sort of gaming seemed excellent sources for cheer and desire. I saw one filly win a stuffed Pegasus that looked remarkably similar to the one I had met when I dropped my cup, and I scowled at the toy, knowing instantly the feeling was foolish. I found one tent where one had to manipulate a ring without touching a strangely curved metal pole. This was easy, and I did it several times before being asked to stop, receiving another inedible waterfowl for my efforts. As I slipped it into a saddlebag, I noted that it too had a domed head covering similar to that Pegasus, and I decided I would let Topaz have her own waterfowl back. The idea of chewing on this one much more satisfying. There's a book signing, also apparently with a similar theme, but I had no interest in such a thing. There were many other tents, and I decided to walk through them all. Many were games of chance. One pony offered to read my hoof, which I found ludicrous as I had never written on my hoof and never will. There is no possible way that the writing will not get smudged, and having some pony who makes it their job to read such things is proof that it is a wasted effort. Another offered to guess my weight, and I was startled with how wrong they were, as I assumed they were as well. Oddly, I received another prize for this, and I resolved to give the enormous stuffed butterfly to Topaz. She would doubtless find it amusing. There was one small tent at the far corner of the square, somewhat apart from everything else. As I approached, I could hear shouting, and I assumed it was another pony claiming a game was rigged. Still, I had decided to see everything and approached the tent, only to be disappointed it had turned out similar to the book signing across the field. You two slackers haven't gotten a single signature? Not one pony interested? Honestly, how the buck are you supposed to win someone over with pamphlets and paperwork? In my day... Sir, with all due respect, it's a fair. Not many ponies are really thinking about joining today. It's really more of a formality. The grizzled stallion spun, seeing me for the first time. You! He barked. You want order in your life? I blinked, startled to have been involved in this conversation so quickly. Yes? Want 3 hots and a cot? Well, yes. 3 hot meals sounded very reasonable. I didn't quite understand the point of asking. Who wouldn't want that? Want to serve your country? Yes, I stated, more interested. If this was a guessing game, I was clearly doing well. Are you willing to stand up for the folk of Equestria at a moment's notice? Waiting for the first provocation to the safety of her citizens? Yes, I stated, more firmly, finding myself pleased at how straightforward this conversation was going. I liked the stallion. He was making this all very simple. Are you willing to fight and die to protect Her Majesty Princess Celestia? May the light shine forever on her! Yes! I practically shouted back at him, not entirely sure why we were shouting, but understanding that perhaps he was a little deaf. Sign here! He practically threw a clipboard at me, and I did so, startled. Welcome to the Royal Equestrian Guard. You start your training at the castle on Monday at dawn. Dismiss, soldier! I staggered out of the room, stunned and amazed, barely hearing the words behind me. Sir, you can't just... Not an authorized form of recruitment. The guard can't just... Topaz found me wandering about as I tried to fully process what just happened. That had been sudden, it had been intense, and I had been firmly ordered what to do, where to do it, and exactly when. It was incredible. I was still trying to comprehend it as I handed Topaz the butterfly I had won. Aw, it's adorable. I mean, it really should have a proboscis, not a mouth like this, but it's still very cute. Thank you, Idol. Anything else interesting happen? I won a duck and I did not have my hoof red. Uncertainly, she nodded as if to urge me on. Sounds like fun? She got into her pack and began to retrieve something of her own. I think I just joined the Royal Guard, I offered, not entirely sure that was what just happened, but feeling rather confident of it. The saddlebag rolled off Topaz's side as she spun, hitting the ground. You what?